I know you've missed us.
Oh, we've missed you. Oh, yes, we have.
Hey, we've definitely missed the little Friday fun, even though, just so you know, we're planning on moving the date and time of these, or the day of the week.
Yeah, we are. Okay.
We're going to play around with some different times just because now that school's back in and life is getting a little less lockdown of COVID.
Yep.
We're going to change around the time. So next week, I think we're gonna possibly be on Tuesday, and then the week after that, we're going to start trying to be on Thursdays.
Maybe Thursday, maybe Wednesday. You know, we might just sprinkle it here and there.
No, we'll stay consistent on you guys, but it's going to be like Tuesday or Thursday mornings.
All you need to do is just follow us on social media, like you are right now watching us. That way you can keep up with us.
Yeah.
So no matter what day
we're there, yeah. So, yeah, sorry that we've been gone the past few weeks. We've had some craziness, and we try to be, you know, actually live on these things. So, we weren't here. Yeah, life has been a little crazy. Justin got his head cut. Big crater sliced in his head. But he's good.
I don't want to show y'all because that could be graphic content for some of you. But it does not feel good. If I look like I'm a robot and not making facial expressions, that's because my head's been scrunched for the stitches. So, with that, what other exciting news do we have going on besides my head getting cut open?
Well, I guess that's not exciting, but it's news.
But it's great for Halloween coming up because then I can be a moon because I'll probably have a crater up there.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, though.
Yeah, I think by then it should be better. But, well, there's been a lot of things going on. So, we actually had a new team member join us. Savannah, shout out to you out there. She joined the team to help us with social media and some design elements specifically around social media, advertising, and stuff like that. So, goodness, we're a couple weeks in on.
She's almost 4 weeks.
Or 3.
Something. Yeah.
Anyway, so she joined in, and then another shout out to Jasmine, who is our content specialist. Her and her husband welcomed their little baby boy, Isaac. What was his middle name?
Oh, this is awkward.
No, she just told us like literally the day like she was having the baby because we hadn't asked for.
Was it Lee?
No, it was Isaac.
Okay.
Luke. Or something. I don't know. Anyways, Isaac LeBlanc.
Jasmine,
we'll go
we
with
apologize.
That. Jasmine, sorry.
We do apologize.
Isaac LeBlanc. So super cute little baby.
They are adjusting to home life with the little one. This is their first, so it's exciting.
Yeah, so that's like new in the space of all of us from a team standpoint.
What about from a marketing standpoint? What's something new you've learned?
Well, there is something sort of exciting that has come out, at least for people to broaden, you know, and it's perfect for today's talk, actually, and I'll talk more about it as we get further in the topic, but the Hulu actually opened up their advertising for small business, so you can actually...
What is Hulu? It's the online TV platform, just in case you don't know.
Yeah.
But they also do live TV now because a lot of people are cutting the cords. And so Hulu has live TV and also the on-demand TV as well.
Yeah.
So that's a huge win for a marketing standpoint to be able to target and access the Hulu system.
Yeah, so now they have an ad platform basically, and, you know, it's very... accessible for small businesses, so definitely check that out, especially like what we'll talk about in a little bit about awareness level. I mean, that's a good medium for general awareness and stuff like that, so, and just making sure you're getting like multi-touches on people. But anyways, I thought that was really exciting news.
I'm looking into it because it looks really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where I think they're like slowly opening it up for more people. I know when I had heard about it initially, I don't know, about a month or so ago, it still had a higher budget level that they were accepting people for, but they're continuing to bring that number down, and I suspect it's going to just continue to go down to where you're basically going to be able, you know, sort of like Facebook or whatever, to go YouTube, in and set up some ads that would actually be on, you know, a high profile channel and show.
Yeah,
or
I've already got
whatever.
a couple of clients that I want to take this idea to once we get access, because I know we've already completed the forms and all that as the agency side. So I'm super nerdy excited about that, just to see how we can implement it and streamline that process. So it's pretty fun there.
Yeah, so I think that is something new and fun. But today, we sort of, this month we're trying to bring you a little bit of content around actual content marketing. And so, what we thought would be really useful for you guys to touch on today is really just to talk about actually measuring the success of your content. Because what we tend to run into when we're working with clients or just starting out talking to a potential client, and we start talking about goals and all those things, because if you followed us for any length of time or come to any of our talks, we're always focusing in on goals and ways to make everything a little bit more strategic and guided. And what happens is a lot of times people will be like, well, we're trying to do this, and they won't really realize that from a marketing standpoint, you can measure some of those things that they're wanting to do. So we thought that today would be, a good starting point on the content marketing space to basically go over a few key areas of like ways to measure success around certain types of goals that we see a lot with working with clients. So we thought that could give you a heads up when you're sort of thinking about what you want to do, what you should be measuring along the way to make sure it's working.
Cool. So let's dive into our first question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to be interviewing Michelle just because of this stuff up here.
Yeah, he might not say much today. I'm going to have to talk for both of us a lot.
So how can you measure how aware a potential customer is of your brand?
So this is one of those things where impressions are going to be your friend. So really, like we just mentioned with the Hulu platform and everything around wanting to get potential customers or existing customers to stay aware of your brand, to stay aware of changes, launches, to even know your product or service exists, is all about impressions and making sure you actually get in front of them. And so it's going to vary per customer or per company, because at the end of the day, if you're something that's very much commonplace, then you don't necessarily have to do awareness from a standpoint of educating the customer on like how your product or service solves a problem that they didn't really know existed. Like you don't have to worry about that. So take, for instance, if you're toilet paper, everybody knows they need toilet paper. So it's more of like the awareness to be top of mind.
This brand makes toilet paper. You want to be
Right,
that brand.
right. Whereas if
sense.
it's that you sell a product, so say you have just recently come out with some new type of toilet paper that has some different aspect to it.
700 ply toilet paper. How about that?
It has some key characteristic that people didn't even know. So I'll just morph it into an example I've seen with some other products that are common staples. So say you came out with, a new toilet paper that's, free of all these chemicals or whatever, and it's like very
better for the environment.
Right, better for the environment, or it it does something like that different, and people didn't even realize that the old toilet paper was so bad or whatever. Like that's sort of an example of how you could break into that awareness space. But those are sort of the two areas to think about: is do I need to be educating when I'm making people aware of my product because they may not know that the problem exists, or do I need to just be top of mind and reiterate what you offer, but you don't have to get so much on the education side. So anyways, things you're going to want to do to measure that is going to be anything impression. So you want to again get that impression count up from a marketing standpoint. So whether it be when you're doing advertising, they give you that report, so you'll get an impression count on any advertising platform, and especially like on Google and Facebook, you can set up your target to be in such a way where you're wanting to get impressions.
Yeah, same thing on Google Ads as well.
Right.
You can target that value. You can go for impressions only.
Right, and reach and brand awareness is actually like the goal objective. And so that's why those platforms set it up in such a way when you're doing that. And essentially, a lot of times when you're like boosting a post and stuff like that, you're setting it up for more of awareness to just reach a bigger audience. So that's one key thing to measure there is the impressions. If you're doing something old school, like some mailers and stuff like that, obviously it's like the actual count of what you mailed out would be something that you want to keep up with. And then the same thing for, any kind of on TV advertisements, you can get a viewership count and stuff like that, like estimates and stuff like that.
Same thing with billboards. You can get like a traffic estimate from that billboard company.
Yeah.
One of the things I do want to mention is on the website for like a search engine optimization.
Oh, yeah.
You could look at Google Webmasters or Bing Webmasters and get the total number of impressions where your website showed up in search results.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can also calculate that into your potential awareness reach, which is huge in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, basically all of those help you get a view. If that's something that's important for you, is to make more people aware that you even exist, and not necessarily about some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, then that is something that you need to pay attention to, is the impression count, viewership. Those sorts of metrics are going to help you determine how much your brand is getting out, the word's getting out. So.
And one of the good things with that is when you're trying to decide what brand awareness to do to help get your awareness out, is look at all those metrics from the billboards, from the TVs. What's the viewers that you're going to reach for the cost? Because then you might see one platform might be better than the other.
Right, that, and even, again, like veering more into being strategic is, where is your target audience more? So think about that too, like the demographics and those sorts of things.
Again, always fun there with the research. So, we got the awareness, but let's talk more about conversions. I love conversions. So, what marketing measurements matter for a conversion?
Well, so that one is one that's going to be very specific on what your actual business is, because if you're in the e-commerce space, obviously a conversion for you, a big important conversion for an e-commerce business is actual sales on their e-commerce platform. Whereas, and even
offline too, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's if you have an actual physical store. So basically that might be more of a conversion for a person that has a brick and mortar. So, actual store visits are what you're aiming for. If you're B2B, you may be more interested in people filling out a specific form on your website. So if you're working mainly with other businesses, you're going to care that you actually get a lead generated off of someone coming to your website.
Or even a phone call. We're just gonna throw that one
phone
out there
call.
in left field.
Yeah. Well, that still happens. You still get phone calls sometimes. But so that can be considered as a conversion as well. Then you got to think about other things about expertise. If you're just if one of your goals is to actually show expertise in your field, then you may care more about people actually like engaging with your content and consuming it and those sorts of things. So there's all sorts of different conversions, but some of the key ones around revenue are obviously going to be for someone that's working mainly with businesses, which is B2B. They're going to care more about actually generating a lead, whereas someone that has an e-commerce side, they'll care about leads as well, but that's like a secondary goal a lot of time in comparison to an actual conversion on their checkout on their website. So
okay, cool.
So when you're doing that, it's going to be very specific. It's going to be those things that you're actually measuring how many times those events happen. So you have to make sure you have tracking on the site.
A way to actually log it.
Yeah, like a way to track with Google Analytics. You can also set up some stuff as conversions in Facebook Analytics if you're doing that with the Facebook Pixel. So you can set that up so you can monitor the conversions there. But that's key to making sure you can actually measure it, because that's one thing that I always tell people when we're actually like when I'm doing a talk about stuff is make sure whatever that conversion is that you can actually measure it before you start pushing a campaign to try to drive all those conversions, because if you can't measure it at the end of the day, then you won't know what success there was. Now, yeah, obviously you might see a spike in revenue or something like that, but it is nice to make sure you can actually measure the conversion that is of interest.
And then those who are looking for like their expertise side, definitely looking at time on site. How long are they reading that content? Are they reading multiple pieces of content? Or if you have PDF downloads or any type of offline download from your website, are they downloading those? Those kind of things are another way to measure a conversion from that sense as well.
Right, yeah, even that. And then also, some people might put like the little thumbs up that this was a helpful article. That can be considered a conversion. And also,
with the page,
interacting. Like some people put like more of an excerpt and then you click continue reading. That might be what you would use to actually monitor the conversion of the content being engaging enough. So,
or if they completed a video, they watched the video. That's another one. Mm-hmm. Again, there's a lot of forms of what your business might deem as a conversion. So that's why it's very specific to you.
Right. Yeah. So that's really it for the marketing measurements for conversions.
All right. So we've talked about awareness and we talked about conversions. So what about brand loyalty? How can you measure brand loyalty? So basically your customers being your biggest promoters.
Right. Well, this one, and I know I sort of said it with all three questions, but there's different areas you can consider. One thing is going to be for a way to measure how loyal a customer is with you is, how many times, if you are an e-commerce store, repeat purchases. That retention rate if you're an online subscription system. So are these people sticking around? How long is the retention rate for a customer, their life cycle, customer life cycle? Those are all sort of measurements to allow you to factor in on the brand loyalty. As far as actual measurement of maybe the promotion side of a loyal customer is going to be think about your referrals. So how many referrals are you receiving from previous customers or current customers and that sort of thing. So how likely that person is, like if you're doing surveys, how likely they are to refer you, how many actual referrals you're getting per customer and that sort of thing. Those are all things to consider as a way to measure how much of a promoter that person is. And then, things to think about too is, to promote that sort of stuff, you have to because you might have someone that is really loyal or a good promoter of you, but you're not really like telling them how to do it. So make sure that you put that stuff in place if those metrics are important to you. Make sure that you think about, okay, I need to be sending out satisfaction surveys and I need to be sending out emails once someone becomes a customer so that I can keep them as, an engaged customer that then will, purchase again or promote me to a friend or a family member or a coworker, whatever. So those are just things to consider. But I think the biggest thing, if you're trying to actually measure how loyal a customer is, you got to think about the life cycle, the time that customer will remain a customer, and you want to lengthen that, obviously. And then the retention rate, you want that to be higher. And then from a promotion side, you want to think about them actually referring you or sharing your social media posts. That could be another one too, as far as the promoter side.
Yeah, you might see that more on the B2C side. You might have somebody who shares every single post that you do because they're ingrained in your brand.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a great way to measure loyalty and in evangelist level is, keeping up with the shares and the engagement, comments, that sort of thing on your actual social media channels too.
Yeah. So that's good. Those are good ways. And I will have to attest the customer surveys, the satisfaction surveys, do them often because then you'll see if there's maybe at a certain time of that length of a customer, like, oh, we need to get them back in because of they're falling off side. So that brand loyalty is huge because most of the time it doesn't require marketing dollars put behind it.
Right.
And it just you can keep them happy,
Right. It just takes a little bit of extra internal manpower Or even, automation. You can do some of that stuff through automation, though I think, the higher the value of your service, then the more hands-on you need to be in that actual process. Like you can automate some, but you never take away the actual personal connection that you have.
So again, these are all ways to make sure you get the most out of your content and you're maximizing and measuring it at the same time. So we talked about, just to do a little recap, we talked about awareness, and that's just getting your brand in front of people.
Impressions are your friend.
It might not necessarily mean an action is wanting to happen at that moment, but it's, hey, we're out here. Don't forget about us.
Right.
Don't forget about my 700 ply toilet paper that has one sheet. And then for your business, determine what is a conversion and make sure you can measure that.
Yes.
That will show you exactly what's working and what's not working. And then also don't forget about measuring your brand loyalty. Why are customers staying around?
Or why are they not staying around?
Why are they not? Some like to be positive. Just kidding.
But the way you measure that, the key things are the referrals and the retention, life cycle, the time of the life cycle and that kind of thing. So that's just a few metrics. We thought that would be helpful. I hope that you find that information useful. And basically for the rest of the month, we're going to sort of dive more specifically into metrics that you would want to monitor in each different platform, and sort of talk talk about what those metrics are actually going to mean for your social media, for instance. So
diving into Facebook and Instagram, looking at those statistics there. And then a couple weeks out, we'll talk about email marketing specifically. And then later down the road, you should come back and join. We're going to be talking about holiday prep.
Yes, that's coming too.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for joining us. And I hope that this is helpful. And be sure to, message us if you have any questions. Message us if you have any specific topics that would help you and your brand succeed.